How many of you would have had this discussion or thought on whether to use AWS Control Tower or whether to use AWS organizations? Max, this video is going to walk you through step by step. So without further ado, let's get started. As part of this video, these are the topics we're going to cover, which is going to be a brief introduction to AWS, where I'll walk you through the services and why we need managed services, the AWS organizations overview, and similarly, I'll walk you through the control tower setup, what exactly these organizations and control tower will do, and then I've created a table for you, which provides the side-by-side comparison that should help make subsequent decisions in your organization. And when should you choose which one? Because not every both are applicable for certain scenarios. And this is where you could see I have the setup here, and let me straight away jump into the Arina Technologies Management Console. Over here, you could see all the services that AWS provides, and that it is for compute. Compute is where you would have a VM or a physical machine similar to that. Containers is like a Docker image or any other image which we deploy on a VM or any other managed services, storage, database, migration. If you want to migrate your applications which are running on an on-premise data center to cloud, you could do that. Networking, cloud content delivery, and a lot of tools, right? Management, governance. So like if you see, we have in compute, which is the very basic service that anybody would most likely be doing, would be EC2. EC2 is nothing but Elastic Compute Cloud, or a fancy way of saying a virtual machine. That is what a EC2 is, and this is something that you would provision a VM. This doesn't fall in the managed operations because this is something you would be spinning up as well as managing. But services such as Lambda, where it's a serverless function, which is essentially you would be just coding it, and AWS takes care of deploying the function and running on an infrastructure which is hidden from your site. Elastic Beanstalk is another one, where for a web application, you could have these services out of the box and you're able to deploy your application on Tomcat or any other container or application server to host your application. Likewise, in containers, there is a container registry. You don't need to set up in-house. You could always leverage AWS's container registry. Container services, ECS, is in-house. AWS is in-house on how you could deploy a container, similar to the features that Kubernetes provide. And Kubernetes, everybody knows about Kubernetes, where it's something that Google initiated for microservices architecture, and it has industry-wide adoption to deploy containers in the form of pods and nodes that to be set up on any infrastructure. Storage S3 is a managed storage service where you would be able to host your files or any other artifacts on S3, which is a simple storage service. EFS is a shared storage device where it's Elastic File System, where you could have the storage shared across multiple instances. Because, like, say, if you have Elastic Block Storage or EBS, it is only mounted to one VM. While the Elastic File System, it could be mounted to multiple VMs, thus providing similar scenario as a NAS, network attached storage, which is done on-prem. And likewise for databases, you don't need to have the database always on a VM. For RDS, is a managed operation database that you could just provide, whether you want to run PostgreSQL, MySQL, or a SQL Server database on a cloud. So RDS has that option, and it could to provide simplified setup as well as reducing your technical debt going forward. Elasticache is likewise similar setup as well. A lot of customers of ours use these services. And these are the other ones. I won't go into each one, but VPC is another important one because any infrastructure that we spin is ideally in a VPC. It provides a little more locked down setup for the infrastructure. CloudFront, a lot of applications and web applications for our customers, they are leveraging CloudFront to provide the right caching and the right performance. Our domain management is done in Route 53, where for our customers, we do this setup. And API gateway for all our APIs that we deploy. API gateway is very important that we use, like say Contact Us. The API is exposed by API, and we use this information. All of the tools that we use as part of the setup for our customers. And then management and governance, we use a lot of this. Organization is something I'll walk through. And likewise, there is Control Tower as well. I'll be walking you through that as well. This is Control Tower. And there are other services. And please feel free to drop in a comment, or if you want to get into details about any other services, or if you want to compare one service with another service, I could create a video for you for next time. But you could see these are the other ones, and a lot of our customers this is another popular service, Amplifier, where a lot of our customers, we have deployed the applications using Amplifier. We create the GUIs in Figma, and it provides a seamless automated deployment. Likewise, AppSync, where we have the APIs exposed in them. And then if a few of the other services that we use, TextTract we use for analytics, for AI, we use for PDF reading, we use Athena for querying data, from S3, from CloudTrail, from CloudWatch. It is a nice query interface that we use for a lot of our customers. OpenSearch is another one, which is OpenSearch is similar to Elasticsearch. It's essentially Elasticsearch, wherein it provides a lot of the same features that Elasticsearch would provide over here. And then these are the advanced ones. We have a data pipeline where we would build for a customer, large enterprise customers. For building a data pipeline is what we would be using these tools. Glue is like a similar data pipeline that you would be kind of creating out here. So I hope this provides a good overview about AWS. It's a mix of managed services, which is called the PaaS option, platform as a service, and IaaS. This is a IaaS, which falls under the IaaS category. And the PaaS is the other option, where you would be, the AWS takes care of the management, and you would be just leveraging the code. Now, compared to IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, the PaaS is usually on the expensive side because you don't have to do any operations, but AWS in turn is doing the operations for you, and thus there's a little bit of extra additional charge. But believe me, you're better off paying that additional cost, because rather than you taking care of the operations, you resolve the VM vulnerability, ensure the patching is proper, ensure your application is able to run with latest and greatest version, stable version. It's better to use the PaaS option compared to the IaaS one. So I hope that is clear, and let me know if any other service you want to go. So we'll switch back to our next agenda topic, that is the organization's overview. To the root and click create new OU, and you could always say audit or sandbox 2, or say finance OU is one. So you could give the name finance. Do always have tags. It's always a good practice to have tags to ensure the right setup is there. And you could do create organization account. Now you see I have 2 organization units that I chose. And in this organization unit, if I want, I could always create another organization. Say if I do auditing, I could choose this and hit create organization unit. Now if you see the hierarchy, I'll be able to have one audit organization here. Now if I go to the sandbox, I could always try moving this account to say auditing, and then it will be moved to auditing. Now this is where the account has moved into. So now this is where, let me show you that what exactly these terms mean. Invitations, I showed you about that if you have an existing account, you could always invite the existing account to be part of your organization unit. So this is where you could give the account ID, and it would send an email or invite the other account email to join your account. So this is the first step that would be required. Services. Now, as part of the organization, it is that not every service is enabled, which is good because you wouldn't want each and every service enabled, and some developer is very enthusiastic and able to spend up a lot of resources, for which, if for your project or for your organization, whichever services you want to use, you would want to have those sort of services enabled. Now, in my case, you see, I needed a few of these services, like say Security Hub. If I need this, I could always enable trusted access and then enable it. Security Hub would be enabled in that scenario. So this is where I could do it. And then if I enable Security Hub, I would need to do a few additional things and click enable. So if I come back here, I could enable it. And now I'll get the message, trusted access is enabled. So you could do the similar thing for each and every service that you want, but this is a good practice that you only allow the services that you want to be enabled. And then the next section is policies. There are different kind of policies that are there. One is the AI services opt-out policies. If you and your organization, you don't want to use AI, that is what you could kind of opt out. Backup policies for backing up your application or your storage, the policies of that, the retention period of all that is what you would want to have over here. The service control policies are popularly called SCPs. is another good way for you to have hierarchical setup done right at the root level to your child organization and policies for tags. So as part of this video, I'll show you the service control policies because this is very much used in every organization, every scenario that we advise our customers for. So this is something that we always do. Now, as you see, I created this deny, delete. There are two policies that I created. Now, what this one is doing is I've put over here to deny deleting of the CloudWatch resources out here. So this, if I put it out, if I could always edit it, or if I could go to the policy and action, and I could attach this policy to say the new unit that we created, or even I could do at the top level. So what if I do it at the top level? It's, as you see, the other ones have been disabled. So this policy for denying deleting of the CloudWatch logs is going to apply to each and every OU and each and every account. Or if I don't want to do this, I could always choose at the account level that I want to delete that for the sandbox account. I don't want to have any permission allowing deleting of the CloudWatch logs. I could do it and I could attach the policy, and that CloudWatch delete could be allowed, permitted at that particular account. And then there are a few settings one can go into. This is where like a little bit of reading from your side, so I wouldn't go into the settings aspect. And there's documentation, get started, and how one could go about it. This is for further reading. If anybody has any questions, they could always ping me on the chat to provide further information. But coming back to this is what the hierarchical setup would be for the organization. And what I've done is, like, for this particular user, you could see that I have given access to the two accounts that are here. And this is where the account is coming in as part of the management account. And this is where, if I set up as an organization unit, I will be getting a feature app for a single sign-on enabled. So using essentially one console, I'm able to log into two different accounts that are there. This is a lot different. If I have multiple accounts, there is no single sign-on. I will have to ensure that I log out from one before logging into the other one, or I'll have to use a cross-account role setup for having that access. But this provides a simpler interface. It enables single sign-on, and it helps reduce the blast radius as well. I hope this makes it clear about when to use organizations. So now let's go into the next topic, which is the control tower. On the control tower, essentially what it provides is automated account provisioning. Unlike you saw that we had to go and create accounts separately or rather invite the accounts that are already there, the control tower by default it creates the accounts itself, the ones that you need, like auditing or logging. It'll go and create, or you could use an existing account as well. It will configure a few of the environments based on the best practices. So something that you could always use, because you could always rely on the pros to set up your environment rather than you doing it manually and scripting it out. If you have many organizations or many accounts, it is better to have a centralized logging and monitoring, because monitoring and logging, if there's a vulnerability on one, it becomes very difficult to know which one. So therefore it is recommended to always have centralized, and for which CloudTrail Tower provides out of the box. Ongoing policy management through guardrails, and that is something we saw in organizations for using service control policies, but we had to manually go and do for each one. Control Tower, out of the box, it provides that setup. And these guardrails that are there, config is one guardrail. Security Hub is another guardrail. Guard Duty is another guardrail. So these are the guardrails that come out of the box. So let me show you in the console of how exactly will be the Control Tower setup over here. So now, Control Tower, you could only do it as part of the management account. You cannot do it as part of any of these other accounts. So it has to be part of the management account. For which, if I go in here, and this is where you could see which is the account you are sitting in under, this is where I am. And if I go here, you could choose the setup landing zone, and this provides this is where you will be taken a page landing zone page. You click this. A few of the readings you could do, where Control Tower for existing organizations, that you should expect the following, whether it'll have the necessary permissions to govern all the OUs and their accounts within your AWS organization structure. It does not extend governance to existing OUs and accounts. Instead, you'll see a landing zone that contains resources managed by AWS Control Tower, When you bring an existing organization into AWS Control Tower is called registering. So something you would need to do as well. And likewise, there are the additional things. If there's some limitations, you cannot register in Control Tower if you have more than 300 accounts in an 300 accounts in an OU. So something to keep in mind. Pricing, there's no charges for setting up Control Tower. There's no charges for setting up organizations as well. It is the resources that you spin is when AWS is going to start charging, or any cloud provider is going to start charging you over here. A few of the regions you could kind of choose on unchoose. Now this is by default chosen. You could always disable this one and choose the other ones also not to be disabled. So this is what you could kind of do over here. And you could always have this region deny setting, because this is something you should do, because you wouldn't want to somebody to have a resource set up in Sao Paulo when it is not used. So this is something that you would want to enable. You could hit next. Now this is where you could have its AWS provisions these foundational organization units for you. One of them is you could have the name for security, where you'd want to have the security set up as part of the your control tower, and it could be a separate account altogether, because security having the logs and the information passed, say, to any service security incident event management tool is also required. So which is where you could have security. You could create a new organization unit, which is usually recommended. But for the sake of this video, I'll choose an existing one. I'll opt out for now because I already have it. But it's recommended to choose this. And this is the OU name that I had created as part of the earlier one. You could choose this. Hit next. Likewise, for the management account, as I said, you have to have the email of the account that you have created. And then you could choose the log archive account. If you want to, it's recommended to create a new account that you could kind of pass the logs on to, so it's separate from the existing ones. Or if you want, you could always use an existing account as well out here. So for the purposes of this video, I could just show you the existing one, and I could choose sandbox here, and I hit this one. Likewise for audit, I could choose use existing, and I could choose this one. And this is where I need to choose. It gives me a message that it needs to be unique. So for which, if I go into organization, I will choose the audit one that I had created account. And this is the account I had created, and I could give this one, and I hit next. Now, this is where a few additional configuration on how you want to manage access to your AWS account. So this is, you could choose Control Tower sets up the AWS account access, or you could have the self-managed AWS account access with the Identity Center. It is always recommended that you choose this option, otherwise it was pretty much going to defeat the purpose of using Control Tower. And then there is CloudTrail configuration. That is, if an organization have a CloudTrail, you would want to aggregate the information. So this is where it's strongly recommended that you should have this enabled as well, to provide the custom CloudTrail that is managed by Control Tower. So that is where it is strongly recommended you enable this. Log configuration for Amazon S3. This also is important. You should, at least for critical production buckets, you would want to have logging to have the right compliance set up in your account. So this is something that you should provide the information, as well as for S3 bucket retention, the lifecycle policies is what you would want to have enabled. For all our customers, whenever we have the discussion of the data, we do have a discussion with them for how long they want to have the data retention, as well as we do ensure we are properly auditing their data, so that if the time be, if they want to backtrack to 3 years, they always have the luxury to do so. KMS encryption, it's always recommended to enable KMS here, and always recommended to create a custom KMS key, where you could, rather than using AWS's default KMS key, it's always recommended to custom managed key. For all our customers, we always create a custom managed key, and we are able to select it as part of this. But for this particular setup, I'll choose the next option, and I keep it unchecked. And this is where you could review. And once you review, you could see that Control Tower would be spun up as part of all these resources that are there. It'll create resources in those different accounts. The CloudTrail will be set up, and all the other resources will be there. Now, I wouldn't go through this over here, but let me know if you are interested in seeing the end result, the CloudTrail and all those setup. It is just going to spin it up. It's not going to be anything, but let me know in the comments that if this is something you're interested, and I could always create another video to show that. But this is where I'll hit cancel for now, but clicking this is going to set up landing zone, but I'll click cancel, and that is what the Control Tower overview is. I hope this makes clear, and providing a comparative analysis for AWS organizations. Organizations could be used for both large and small business that have multiple customers, and they want to help ensure the security posture, reduce the blast radius, as well as have segregated billing to provide proper operational setup for their customers. They want to have right management costs by implementing the service control policies to restrict service usage, and they want to have simplified billing. Likewise, Control Tower, you could quickly, as you saw, by a few 4 or 5 screens, I was able to have the right setup for my account or for my organization using Control Tower. You could have a very strong governance and compliance control model with minimal effort. And you could have visibility because you have a centralized CloudTrail, centralized guardrails in place. You could have visibility into all your accounts from a common dashboard. And the dashboard itself is provided by AWS Control Tower. There is the side-by-side comparison also provided. This whole info comparison is part of the blog, the link of which is below. Feel free to go and check it out and be able to do the comparison here. But this provides a side-by-side comparison wherein the organization is used for centrally managing and governing multiple AWS accounts, and Control Tower is used to set up and govern a secure multi-AWS accounts that provisions the governance and the guardrails for you, rather than you having to go and do it manually each time. Account management. The organization does centrally manage accounts and groups them into organizational units. Control Tower is an automated account provisioning where you have the pre-configured environments in place. Policies and governance. The service control policies, they are across accounts for permission control. And while Control Tower you implement the governance rules which with mandatory and strongly recommended guardrails, that this is what it'll come out of the box. Compliance and security for organizations, you can define and enforce service control policies, security policies, backup policies across all your accounts or across an organization unit. While in Control Tower, you can set up a landing zone that complies with the best practices, blueprints that many organizations use. For resource sharing, you could share resources in organization like S3 buckets and principals seamlessly across accounts. In Control Tower, there is limited resource sharing. Right? So wherein we'll have to rely mainly on the organizations for such key resource sharing capabilities. For billing and pricing, AWS organizations, it's a free service. Likewise, Control Tower also is a free service. We only use the resources that we spend. Visibility and monitoring. In organizations, we are limited to the organizing accounts, and we are limited for the centralized accounts. As long as the child accounts, they're pushing the data to the parent, to the management account, we are able to get the data. Otherwise, it may not be the case. While in Control Tower, there is a centralized dashboard to visualize the compliance and account monitoring, and this is by default, it is generated. Organizations, as you saw, it was fairly easy to set up. We create an account, we invite the account, or we could just manually create the account ourselves and make it part of the organization unit. Control Tower, also, as you see, it was kind of a 4 or 5 screens, and it's an automated setup for a baseline environment, which is easier and faster for initial setup. Organization, you saw, it was very flexible. Maybe you could provide a customized over account structure and policies. Control Tower, it was pre-configured blueprints that provides us the out-of-the-box setup in place. Use cases is very important because not every organization would want to use Control Tower, and not every organization is good for using organizations, because it can be that it's a small company wherein we don't want to have a separate billing for the customers. You're better off having one account, and as long as you could have the right tagging policy in place and the right setup in place, because a lot of organizations, they don't really charge back to the customer. So if that is not the case, and as long as you can ensure the right security posture for your setup, or you are just starting up for that matter, so you're better off not even having organizations or Control Tower. Just a simple account setup is good enough. But most organizations will eventually grow, and that is when you start having more customers. It is better to kind of go into organizations or Control Tower. Now with organizations, for a small organization, you're better off just starting off with organizations and not be overwhelmed by using a Control Tower, which, in my opinion, is mainly for organizations that are a lot larger, where they have many divisions and subdivisions that in turn are an organization among themselves. So where for those sort of organizations, Control Tower would be a good fit, while for organizations that are starting small and do not have too many customers, they want to keep it clean, AWS organizations is a better fit. So I hope this video was helpful. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and leave your comment on what you think about what the next topic should be, or any comments or any suggestions on how we could try to look into other services that you would want to get into next. Thank you and have a good day.